Hi, welcome to the Boca Voice and Fact or Fiction Friday. Today, we're actually going to get away from East Boca for a little bit. We're going to talk about Midtown, so it's an exciting day for us. And joining us today, we're fortunate to have Mayor Susan Haney. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be
We
here.
have Angelo Bianco from Crocker Center. And joining us is Mitch Adler from Paradise Palms.
Hi.
And Joe Jaffe from Fairfield as well.
How are you?
Thank you all for joining us. And today, as we talk about Midtown, I thought it would be great to bring in some different perspectives in talking about it. So first, I wanted to start with you, Angelo, and tell us a little bit about Midtown and how it's important to Crocker as well as the other developers. And then I thought it would be interesting to talk about you, Mayor, and then we'll get into the different developments and what you gentlemen think.
Great. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very pleased to be here to speak about Midtown Boca. It's really the culmination of a development program that my partner Tom Crocker started 30 years ago in the area. Many of you may recall when he built what was then called Crocker Center, now called Boca Center, on Military near Glades. Since that time, he's built the tall office buildings across the street, as well as Meisner Park. We bought back recently all of the area there, and although the developments were cutting edge at the time, today they're a bit dated, and the area in general has been left behind in the more modern urbanized development trends that we're seeing nationally, internationally. So we've been working very diligently with the city to try and come up with a new way to redevelop the area to create a modern live, work, and play environment, something that will keep Boca on the cutting edge. We are a fantastic community. Boca Raton has led the region in terms of employment growth and lifestyle, and we need to continue doing that, acting as a leader rather than a follower. And Crocker Partners, as well as the other developers that own land in the area, really want to do that and take the charge.
So Mayor, tell us a little bit about how the city has gotten involved in that.
Well, several years ago, we created a land use category called planned mobility, and we designated 5 areas within the city. And the intent was to reduce traffic, shorten trips, and it allowed strategic small amounts of residential and retail adjacent to more employment centers. Our first real success story has been the former Arvida Park of Commerce,
Sure.
which is now the Park at Broken Sound. The Park Place is out of the ground. There's a lot of residential there now being occupied, and we're already seeing the benefits of it. The Midtown area was another area designated as a planned mobility district. Although it's different, we were able to get funding for a second tri-rail station. So now it's morphed into more of a transit-oriented development, which is a little bit different, maybe a little bit more density, but also having that access to transit makes it really, really important. And we're here to just, ensure that it's all positive impact on the city. The neighbors have expressed concern about traffic.
Sure.
Military Trail is a county road. The roadway network in that area is a little disconnected because of annexations. The town center mall and all that was developed by the county and then brought into the city. So there's some challenges, but what a great opportunity for us to revitalize that whole area into a transit-oriented development and have the excitement to make it a real destination.
Now, do you think some of that impact is going to be relieved a little bit with the Spanish River bypass?
Oh,
or?
absolutely. I think the opening of the Spanish River interchange is going to have a very, very significant, in a positive way, impact on the traffic within our community.
Now, Mitch, what kind of an impact do you think it's going to have on your community?
Well, I'll tell you, living in Paradise Palms, we're about 3/4 of a mile from Boca Center, and talking to some of our residents, they're very concerned about traffic issues.
Sure.
And the congestion that will be associated with potentially 2,500 units that are being planned for this area. So that's a concern. For me, I think that the traffic is some issue that we're going to have to deal with. I think 2,500 units is a lot, and it may bring a bit of traffic that more traffic than we're looking to have. So that's going to be an issue that we're going to have to deal with. I think that the concept of the project is terrific. I like the idea, but there are concerns about what it's going to do to the surrounding communities in terms of just being able to get up and down Military, being able to go to Boca Center for a cup of coffee or something for a drink. With the traffic, it may make it difficult. I've heard residents say they're going to avoid the area.
So I don't know if that's practical, but that's the issue that some of the folks that live in Paradise Palms are dealing with.
Sure. Joe, how about yourself?
Well, Fairfield Boca is right next door, so we feel a tremendous impact on it. But we're all positive. We happen to love the idea. First of all, we look at the buildings. We can see them from our development. We have 428 homes, and we're not just townhomes. We're single-family homes as well. And I've been now the president there for 17 out of the 18 years
So
I've
you
been
don't
living
like being
there.
involved at all?
No, I wish somebody would take it over. Nobody wants the job.
You're doing such a good job.
And working with the city that we have in the past, and we've had a street light come in on military that helps. When I first took over the community as a board, we really improved it. It was not in good shape. And I love when you see modernization and new things coming along. And living right next door, I look forward to it. We all do. And we know the values of our homes are going to increase tremendously. Military for us is we're right in the middle of it, so I don't think the traffic's going to be any different than it is right now, which is getting in and out is a somewhat of a problem, and only in the business hours. When you're not in those business hours, in the morning hours, there is no problem getting in and out or going up and down the streets. And I don't have, I think a lot of our homeowners don't have that much of a concern about the traffic as much as we would like to see the development come in and get rid of some of the buildings and businesses that are there that are undesirable and we don't want, and see the new generation of what's going to happen. Just like, look at Delray, downtown Delray, go Atlantic Avenue. It takes 20 minutes to get downtown, but once you go there, you keep on coming back.
Mitch, do you agree with that statement? Do you think it's more time during business hours?
I think
the issue?
the rush hour traffic is a problem, will be more of a problem for sure. Personally, it doesn't affect me because if I go during rush hour, I'm just going up to Glade, so it's
Sure.
it's a very short hop anyway.
Yeah, my office used to be on Banyan. I actually moved from Banyan over to East Boca. I actually
So
live
you really,
over here,
you would
yeah.
bypass that. So personally, I don't see it as an issue, but, you know, I do think increasing the number of units, all those, putting in those units there and making that into the multi-use development as being planned, it will certainly increase traffic during business hours.
No, Angelo, is 2,500 the correct number?
And I actually think it would be ideally better if it was larger than 2,500. And the reason is, and why the area is designated as a planned mobility district, is because actually by bringing the residential to the jobs, and there are 6,500 jobs in the immediate area, and then when you expand it a little bit to include the area directly north of Glades, where Boca Corporate Center is, and a military where Lynn Financial Building is, and Fountain Square, the jobs number count multiplies significantly. Boca Raton is a great generator of jobs. We have a tremendous number of office space. As a matter of fact, the most office space in the entire county is in Boca Raton. The problem is that the workforce housing, or the people that work in these jobs, live elsewhere. 90% of the 90,000 jobs are commuters who commute in and out of Boca Raton every day for their job. So we can offer more housing options to capture some of those workers who work here to actually stay here. It will actually decrease the traffic during rush hours, both morning and in the afternoon. It will, of course, increase the overall number of traffic on other times because people may, after work, drive somewhere or on the weekends. But it's during times, as Joe pointed out, that we don't have a problem with traffic. The more people that we put in the area, the more of a vibrant live, work, and play area we create, the less dependent the occupants are going to be on their cars. We're implementing Midtown Boca with a multimodal, which is a fancy way of saying many different forms of transportation network, which is going to include bike lanes, sidewalks, a continuous trolley system that will loop all through Boca Raton on a ring road that will link it all together. And we'll be supplementing that with an on-demand golf cart service that's been working very successfully in Delray Beach, for instance. And as well as all of the multifamily buildings are going to be designed to have zip cars, which are on-demand car rentals at any time, as well as ideally suited for the shared economy of driving, which is your Uber and Lyft type services. And so we're trying to build for our future. The future is not going to be like the past. The future is going to, at some level, have autonomous driving vehicles. I'm not exactly sure how or what day, but that is what we should be building in front of. If we design a project for a world that existed 30 years ago, which is what's currently there, it will be doomed to failure. We're trying to design a project to embrace the future.
Now, Mayor, you've been one of the most forward-thinking mayors the city has ever had, and that's been a privilege.
Well, thank you.
What are some of the things that you've seen and as you've looked at that we're going to have the kind of looking at? So what are some of the things that you're seeing in Midtown that are going to be, that are going to help us?
Well, a couple things. One, I'm not certain that 2,500 units is the right unit number. I share that concern. Until the train station is constructed, you know, I would support perhaps a limited number of units. As far as military trail traffic, a lot of that, well, most of that traffic is pass-through. It's coming from Delray going to Broward, and a lot of it is avoiding I-95 because of the construction. So I think that's having an impact on today. I think once the interchange is finished and those auxiliary lanes are constructed on I-95, those trips will stay on I-95. So I think we're going to have a positive impact with that. Angela and I have talked about some alternative transportation designs for that area, maybe reworking the roadway network somewhat.
Sure.
You know, he's been very open to exploring maybe a bypass, you know, whatever innovative things we can do. You know, to approve Midtown and not make the traffic better, I think would be a disservice to our community. And I know that Crocker Partners are committed to not only, you know, creating something exciting, but to make things better than they are today. And I think that's
How about
really
the services like the golf cart services? We had it in East Boca and then they kind of went away. So how about some of those services?
I think those are, as Angela said, multimodal is the way to go. You know, our Tri-Rail station at Yamato is the busiest station on the whole corridor. And that's because the city has partnered with the corporate citizens up there to have, to address that last mile, to have that shuttle service. That's what makes it so successful. No one wants to use transit if you get off and, you know, and you can't get to your final destination. And I think all the things, the zip car, the on-demand vehicles, the circulator, those all will certainly address that last mile and make the transit a successful model.
Now, Mitch, in your community, what are some of the other issues that you see that you're hearing from some of your residents?
Well, there are the old timers, because my neighborhood is, you know, 40 plus 50 years old, and there are quite a few residents who've been there.
And I apologize for not knowing, how many residents?
330 more or less homes in Paradise Palms, all single family homes. Some of them are maybe about a dozen or so duplexes, but most of them are single family.
Okay.
And some of the older residents just don't want any change, as you know, we can expect. But most of the people who live there, most of the residents, we tried taking a survey and trying to extrapolate out what would be 100% response. But most of the residents are in favor of redeveloping Boca Center. Having said that, the majority of people are opposed to the number of units, and the majority of people are opposed to the square footage. You know, about 68% of the residents that we surveyed are opposed to the number of units and opposed to the 500 square footage minimum. But most of them, about 70% are in favor of development. So I think we have to strike the right balance in terms of what to do with Boca Center, how it's developed. I think the idea is terrific. I like the idea. I think it's going to be really great and bring a lot of vitality to the area. But we have to sort of strike the balance as to the right number of units, the right size, the right kind of people we're going to have there, and how that's going to affect the community.
Sure. And so, what do you think in the balance-wise?
Well, I think, you know, perception is one thing, and I think what we don't look at the whole picture. We don't realize we have an airport right next door, and we have planes coming over, which means there's height restrictions of buildings that are out there right now. There's a building, probably the tallest building's right there right now. Do we look at it? Probably no. It's every day. You're always going to get people that are against anything that's going forward. That we have. But as a majority, when it's progress and it's going to beautify, I don't see where the objections are going to outweigh the positives to get it done. And I think once it's more established of what's going to be done, I've been working with Angelo like over a year now on the ideas and everything. I've never met a person that is more in tune to what people want and ask, and what he's doing now with these meetings to ask people what they want. And I think he's very sincere in what we want to have come about is this whole thing. And I think the end result is going to be what everybody will be happy with. You're always going to get those that aren't. And you know what? That's what makes America.
How about from the city side, Mayor? How has Crocker been from the city side? Not only throwing you under the bus, but from the
Well,
community
I'm
side.
proud about the way we've had it.
Well, I mean, Meisner Park was the catalyst for downtown Boca Raton that we see today, just flourishing and vibrant. So that, so they really have a wonderful track record here in Boca Raton. And again, they were the first, developers in this area with Boca Raton Center and some of those other office buildings. So they've got a great track record. This is innovative. This is exciting. We created the regulatory framework of planned mobility to consider what he's bringing forward. And I think you've heard from everybody. This is going to be a balance between the impacts of the existing residents to work to bring this to life so that it's a win-win on all sides.
And I'm going to throw this out to both you, Joe, and to you, Mitch. How do you think this is going now? Prior to the election, a lot of people said, hey, look, we really want to see more community involvement, more city involvement with developers in the community. It seems to me that it's certainly, after election, I've watched a lot more city involvement and developer involvement involved. Are you seeing a lot more of that?
Well, I think the election, the big issue was an anti-development tone in the election, and since we're past that, I think people are committed to the idea that this is going forward, and so we all want to put our heads together and try to come up with the best plan and the best numbers, if you can, that would benefit everybody. Obviously, the developers want to, build is to the greatest densities possible, which is obviously what their goal is, and the residents need to, voice their concerns about that. So, and I think the city is working with the residents very well on that. I've been to some city meetings and some P&Z meetings and what have you, where these things have been discussed, and the city is thinking about that and concerned about that and watching that carefully, in my view. And so I think there's going to be, some negotiations and some working out some arrangements on what's going to be put in there finally, and I think it'll work for everybody.
That's great. So what other concerns are there? Any other concerns in Midtown that you guys would like to hear heard, or some things that you'd like the other community, some other people in the community to look at, or some of the positive things? They don't have to be considered.
I really believe everybody's have to look at this as a positive and give the opportunity for them to start getting it done and the city get involved like they are, and let's get this thing moving. And I think the end result with what you have today in modernization of transportation, Uber, and I have neighbors that are getting golf carts just within the area. They could take that over. Right now, I can't go over and park next door, and I live right next door, but why should I? I should be able to walk or have him pick me up in a golf cart, okay? It's modernization. That's what we're going to do. That's what he's going to do, okay? And I think if we just give the opportunity to let it happen, it can't be negative. It's got to be all positive, because what it is right now, I don't want to see what's there now. I want to see nothing but improvement.
It's important to realize that all of the concerns that have been raised by the neighbors are valid. And that's why we've been spending so much time reaching out to the neighbors in order to have dialogue. And we've had weekly meetings, if not even actually sometimes bi-weekly meetings, or semi-weekly, I always get that confused, to reach out to the community, because I believe that a lot of the angst and anxiety is from not knowing. And that's why we're trying to reach out to people. For instance, tonight's meeting that we're having is about the multifamily component. And we're going to talk about one of the developers, Cypress Real Estate, is going to be there to talk about the project that he just developed in downtown West Palm Beach, to show real-life pictures and photos, to talk about the demographics of the people that are going to live there, in order to allay some of the concerns that people have. Because I've been asked questions, is it going to be subsidized housing? Is it going to be, and I'm like, no, to the contrary. This is Boca Raton. People don't come here for subsidized housing. This is one of the most desirable places to live in all of South Florida. And so over time, we've been seeing a gradual, as people got more comfortable with what our plans are, a gradual increase in support, and which has been, wonderful, and we expect that to continue. Also, this is a very long process. Where we are in the process today is in the planning and zoning. That's only talking about how much and what type of use you can have in the area, but not site plan approval as to what you're actually going to build there. The public can come to public meetings, multiple public meetings throughout this entire process, and will be represented. In addition to that, we've already modified our plans based off of feedback we've received from the residents, and we'll continue to do so. Crocker Partners, my partner Tom Crocker, myself, and my other partners, we're from here. This is our home. We raise our families here, our kids go to school here, we shop at the local Publix with everyone here. This is our we're not getting on a plane after we build this project. So Mitch said that the developer wants the most density. And yes, that is true, because I think that more density will make this project more successful, but it's not for density purposes. Ultimately, if we end up building something that is a fiasco, that is too dense, that the traffic's horrible, that the parking's horrible, that not only am I going to lose a lot of money, but I'm going to take a hit to my reputation, my partner's reputation. My partner Tom Crocker established the Crocker name and reputation as a sterling one in this community. Created one of the very first public-private partnerships in the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
Boca Center, which was called Crocker Center, is still today an Urban Land Institute case reference project file of what a successful mixed-use project should look like. Mm-hmm. We're not going to risk that reputation, our personal integrity, just for a short-term gain. Furthermore, we happen to be so lucky that two other stellar developers, Trademark and Cypress Real Estate, at the same time bought land to do the same thing. So we have a privately financed gentrification, if you will, of our entire area to modernize it and create a modern, urbanized village within the city of Boca Raton. And that is something we should not squander as a community. That is an investment that we can do with private dollars to carry us through the next 30 years.
Well, and to your point, you're not the only developer that's developing this Midtown. You're the champion of this cause, but you're not the only developer. And I think it's amazing to me that you are out there communicating with the residents and the city and bringing that out. But there's a lot of work that's been done here. And I mean, it's to your point. You also brought up time. How much time so far have you invested, both personally and as a corporation, in bringing this forward?
Oh, I mean, the time, it's incalculable. I spend most of my days now, every day, and the weekends working on this. And it's not just me. It's an effort that everyone has done. And the city spent a tremendous amount of resources as well on this. And the neighbors, I mean, just these two men have been to so many meetings I can't even tell you and committed a lot of time.
And one tonight.
That's right. Tonight. And planning and zoning meetings and everything else we've been doing. So to me, I've spent personally, since I started, well over 1,000 man hours.
Wow.
I'd say since we started this process. But that's, I have a vested interest. I have a commercial interest in doing this to make money. What's truly amazing are these people's times, because they're volunteering to come in for the betterment of their community. They're active voluntarily without any remuneration whatsoever to try and make their neighborhood, their area better. And that they deserve the applause, not me.
That's great. Mayor, what other things do you want to tell us about the Midtown? I think you're important for the city.
Well, I think it's important. Boca Raton is such a special city just because we've had visionaries like Addison Meisner truly put us on the map. The property that Boca Raton Center sits on today was originally platted to be car dealerships in the county.
Really?
Really?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that
A
either.
bit of a historic tidbit. And thank goodness for such visionaries as Crocker Partners that came forward and created Crocker Center at that time. So when you look back to see where we're going, we need to see where we've come from. And we've invested in this community in bold visions, and I think Midtown represents that as well. However, it needs to be brought forward in such a way that it balances the needs of the existing residents, because we're growing, we're building a city for tomorrow, yet we have to maintain the quality of life that defines Boca Raton for who we are today.
Well said. Mitch, anything in closing thoughts?
I would just say that, not being with any great progress, there's always going to be a period before you get to where you want to be, where it's, you have some challenges. And I think that's the lesson, or that's what we have to deal with, is trying to get through the challenges until you're at that point, because there's for instance, traffic, construction. The construction traffic, I'm sure, will be worse than the regular traffic once it's completed. So we all have to learn how to, or accept the fact that there's going to be some difficulties getting there. But once you get there, it should be a better situation for everybody. And so I think everyone has to be patient and have an open mind to what's going forward. And you have to really start thinking forward. You have to think about what's best for the community long term. This project will be benefiting people who are not even born yet. And it's hard to think that way, and most of us don't. But if you think that way and think about how to grow the city positively, this is a great vision for that.
It's a very good point. Joe?
I just love the transparency of the whole thing. The transparency from the meetings, from something like this forum today and going forward, and the city being involved like they do. And I think that's so vital to have this transparency of what's going on, which gives everybody a good chance to ask and see and make their concerns noted. And I just know it's going to be a great project.
Great. Angela?
I think I've spoken enough today.
Mayor, how about yourself?
No, I just, thank you for the opportunity to come here and represent the city and share our vision. I think collectively, all of us together can really create something that the city can be very proud of. And I think that Crocker has a great track record. They've proven themselves here in our community. And most great things in this city have been done collaboratively with our residents. So I think we're on the path.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you for joining us on the Boca Voice and Fact or Fiction Friday. We look forward to seeing you next week, and don't forget to follow us online or on Facebook. Again, thank you. See you next week.